Hello, and welcome back to Fleetwood Area High School's election coverage for the 2016 presidential election. My name is Tristan Spaniff. This period, our panel discussion will focus on foreign policy. There are 90 electoral college votes up for grabs as Texas, Minnesota, Nebraska, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Kansas will be casting votes. The polls will officially close in Mississippi, and their 6 electoral votes will fall on Clinton, giving them 4-1 in this presidential race. Coming into this general election, many pundits have taken the weakness of Trump's campaign was foreign policy, because he is being challenged by former Secretary of State. Does Trump's lack of foreign policy experience when compared to Clinton's have an effect on the voters? For more of that, our Election Day correspondent, Bianca Jabaria, is with the voter. Bianca?
Thanks, Tristan. We have some exit polling from Indiana, Mike Pence's home state. 50% of those polled believe foreign policy to be a large issue, and the state is split 50-50 on who's better to handle Russia and ISIS. I'm here with Caitlin, and our topic for this period is foreign policy. Do you think it's good for voters if Trump doesn't reveal his plans for defeating ISIS?
I think it's safer for him to not reveal his plans for defeating ISIS, because then ISIS will then be aware of his plans and it'll be an ineffective plan at the end of the day. But I feel as though as a voter, you do want to kind of know how your president is going to handle terrorism.
All right, thanks. You can kick it back to Tristan.
Thanks, Bianca. That's a great segue for our panel discussion. Just to review, each period we'll be welcoming 2 student experts who've done extensive research on the topic of the period. They are here for a conversation on real issues, and the points that they argue are not necessarily aligned with their own political views. This period, our returning panelists, Audrey Agnew, representing the Clinton campaign, and Jonathan Sanchez, representing the Trump campaign. Thank you for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
So this period, we are addressing the issue of foreign policy, and specifically ISIS. My first question to the panel is, at a primary debate in Las Vegas last December, Trump spoke at length about ISIS, but would not commit to revealing a plan how to deal with the threat. Do you think Trump has a legitimate plan to defeat ISIS, and would it be more effective than Clinton's plan to disrupt supply lines through increased airstrikes? John?
Well, I think in order to come up with a plan to defeat ISIS, you really have to understand first what's been causing ISIS and how ISIS rose to power. The rise of ISIS is the direct result of policy decisions made by the Obama-Clinton administration. The Middle East at the beginning of 2009 was relatively stable. Libya was stable. Syria was under control. Egypt was a huge ally. Iraq, violence was reduced. Well, now it's just the opposite. Libya is in ruins. 4 Americans died over there. Syria is at civil war. ISIS controls large amounts of the Middle East, and they are operating in 24 countries. Iran, what's worse is Iran, the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, is flush with $150 billion released by the USA. And also with the whole hostage thing, $400 million extra dollars in ransom. So the Obama-Clinton foreign policy has unleashed ISIS, destabilized the Middle East, and put the nation of Iran in a dominant world power. So in order to fix it, Trump has proposed a few different steps. First, peace through strength, less conflict, more common ground. Second, work with our Arab allies and friends in the Middle East to fight ISIS. Third, pursue aggressive joint and coalition military operations to A, crush and destroy ISIS, B, cut off their funding, and C, expand intelligence sharing. 4, cyber warfare. We want to disrupt and disable their propaganda recruiting. 5, defeat ideology of radical Islamic terrorism, just as we did when we won the Cold War. 6, establish new screening procedures and enforce immigration laws. 7, suspend temporarily immigration from most dangerous and volatile regions. And 8, establish a commission on radical Islam, which will identify and explain to Americans the core beliefs of radical Islam and identify the warning signs.
Audrey, response?
I do actually agree with you that the Clintons' part in Libya is honestly disgusting to me, and I feel like she does have to make steps to definitely fix what she did in that country. Along with like intensifying air coalition air campaigns to take out ISIS and lashing, but she also wants to lash up allies to help dismantle the global network that supplies ISIS and prevent networks from facilitating growth. So that would cause less actual American deaths and working together with allies to defeat ISIS. But she would also pursue democracy and bureaucracy, not bureaucracy, democracy, to end the civil wars in those areas and close Iraq's divide. And I mean, we're not necessarily asking Trump for specifics, as you can see with Hillary's plan. It's just a plan that's not really specific. Like, we do this, we will go here. We're just asking him to help to give us some basics so we can evaluate for our people and our government to see if this is an ethical way, if it's a good way, period. So I'm inclined to believe that the evidence, he doesn't have a full plan to know what he's doing, because I mean, he doesn't really have a politic background. So I mean, you did give reasons as to what he did say, but from the evidence of that time period, he didn't really want to give his plan.
You can have that opinion. That's fine.
I do have it.
All sources point to a tremendous increase in cyber warfare around the globe. This very election has been marked by hacked email accounts and possible unsecure servers. Does your candidate have any sort of plan to address these concerns or prevent future attacks from happening? Audrey, let's start with you this time.
Okay. Clinton plans to launch an intelligence surge working with Silicon Valley to shut down terrorist propaganda online. Hillary calls for cyber attacks to be treated like any other attack and change the lack of cyber attack policy, which she believes is a hole in Obama's administration. And she would weigh each attack individually and declare each an active war in the digital realm. So she would take these cyber attacks just as seriously as any other terrorist attack, with the same military and political backing to stop these cyber attacks from happening.
All right, well, Trump actually has a very, very developed plan for cyber warfare, and it all really begins with ordering immediate review of all U.S. cyber defenses and vulnerabilities. So with that, what Trump plans to do is create a cyber review team of individuals from the military, law enforcement, and private sector to do this. And what they will do, what the cyber review team of individuals will do is, one, establish detailed protocols and mandatory training cyber awareness sessions for all government employees. Second, remain modern on evolving methods of cyber attack. So we want to make sure we're up to date with everything that's coming out. We want to make sure we're best prepared for any cyber attacks that we may receive. And in terms of cyber warfare, we want to make sure that everything we can do is going to help us. 3, create joint task force to coordinate enforcement and responses to cyber threats. 4, discuss recommendations for enhancing the U.S. Cyber Command with the Secretary of Defense. And this will further help us to defend against cyber attacks and to attack back if necessary. And 5, develop offensive cyber capabilities we need to deter attacks by both state and non-state actors and respond appropriately if necessary. Obviously, the first line of command isn't going to be, attack right away. But if we need to attack, we will, if necessary.
Alrighty. Well, that brings our discussion to a close. Thank you to the two of you for all of your insight today.
All right, thank you so much.
Alrighty. That brings our discussion to a close. Let's head back to the scene with Mina, Isaac at the polls. Mina?
Thanks, Tristan. I'm here with Max LaFranchise from Ms. Nagel's history class. Max, 75% of those polled in Nebraska thought that Donald Trump would be better suited to deal with terrorism in the Middle East. What do you think about that?
I think that that's true because Donald Trump is a better leader, and Hillary usually never has a comment for it, and she's just kind of laid back and doesn't do anything.
Okay, thanks, Max. We're going to kick it back to Tristan in the studio now. Tristan?
It's come back to you, Tristan.
Thank you, Mina. That wraps up this period's election coverage. Let's take a look at the map currently. Trump is leading Clinton by a score of 219 to 89 electoral votes in this race to 270. Coming up next period, we'll have results from all 8 states that voted this period, including 7 more states, including Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, South Dakota, North Dakota, Oregon, and Wyoming all will head into the polls to cast their votes for this election. Our panel will be discussing the environment. That wraps up our coverage for Period 6. I'm Tristan Spaneth. We'll see you in 20.